Hello, my name is Miguel Gómez, and together with my partner Tania Arréllaga, we'll tell you about ASD or Autism Spectrum Disorder. We'll discuss the concept, characteristics, the different levels, and finally some possible classroom interventions. So, Autism Spectrum Disorder or ASD is a developmental disability. It is an issue with the development of the brain that can cause significant social, communication, and behavioral challenges. There's often nothing about how people with ASD look that sets them apart from other people, but people with ASD may communicate, interact, behave, and learn in ways that are different from most other people. Autism stems from biological conditions that affect brain development, and for many individuals, it is a lifelong condition. That is, children with autism grow up to become adults with autism. Since autism is a spectrum disorder, its characteristics vary significantly from person to person. Capabilities and limitations are different and very unique to every person with ASD. Some common signs or symptoms of ASD are often social related. For example, people with ASD may have trouble relating to others or have no interest in other people at all. They may have trouble understanding other people's feelings or talking about their own feelings. Autism doesn't make an individual unable to feel emotions. It doesn't make them cold. It just makes them communicate emotions and perceive expressions in different ways. They might seem shy or unfriendly, but that's just because he or she is unable to communicate their desire for relationships the same way most people do. They may have trouble adapting when a routine changes. They may have unusual reactions to the way things smell, taste, look, feel, or sound, so they might get easily distracted or overstimulated. Autism often affects an individual's ability to understand unspoken communication. So someone with ASD might not detect might not detect sadness based only on one's body language or sarcasm in one's tone of voice. But when emotions are communicated more directly, people with ASD are much more likely to feel empathy and compassion for others. The learning, thinking, and problem solving abilities of people with ASD can range from gifted to severely challenged. This is where the different levels of autism come into play. According to the DSM, or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, there are 3 levels of ASD. We have the level 1 or high functioning ASD, which is the least severe of the 3 of them. We have the level 2 ASD or mid functioning, in which people may or may not communicate verbally. And finally, the level 3 ASD or low functioning ASD, which is the most severe case of autism in the spectrum. Taking into account the impact ASD may have in a student's life, it is important for teachers to be familiar with this disorder in order to implement strategies to facilitate the students' learning and social processes within the school setting. Now, my partner Tania will continue with such possible strategies or interventions for cases of ASD.
I'm Tania, and I'm going to share with you the strategies for the classroom. And the first thing that we must do is have our student be diagnosed and placed within the spectrum itself. The next thing is if our student does inappropriate things, the thing that we shouldn't do is argue with them, because this will make them feel like they were doing something very bad, and they will probably feel ashamed. Instead, we should tell them what's expected from them. We should tell them what to do and what not to do, and how to behave in order to avoid those awkward and uncomfortable situations. Another thing is to validate their emotions so they can feel supported and not ashamed of who they are. The next thing is to be expressive more than the usual. Due to their lack of social cues, they don't really get irony, like Miguel said. So you have to be more expressive in order to get your point across. Then you can create a routine for your entire class for the week or the month. And if there are going to be changes, make sure to let your ASD student know, because the unknown is what scares them, what can get them panic attacks and many other things. Also, we have to take into account that panic attacks and anxiety and depression are also things that come within the ASD diagnosis. So don't forget that. And then you can create a big calendar for the entire year, like this, with the things that they like, music, games, movies, so they can feel familiarized within the class itself. And another thing that we should always do is to avoid meltdowns within the classroom or crisis. So if we allow this to happen, then there's a possibility that the student would create this negative association within the classroom. So we have to avoid that by letting the student go outside, have a breath, take some fresh air, and then have them come back to finish their tasks or continue them. Then if the negative stimuli happens to be noise, we can give them noise canceling headphones, or even we can put music or soothing sounds for the entire class. If the negative stimuli happens to be visual, then we can take the student outside or to the library or even to a little corner within the class where there's not as much decoration, where they can focus on what they need to do instead of the things that bothers them. And you can make the class schedule like this, sort of with different icons, so it makes them feel a little more interested in what they're doing. And lastly, here are some QR codes if you want to learn a little bit more about ASD or even some more strategies. Here are the codes. And lastly, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was somewhat helpful. Bye-bye.